Star Wars fans, we just got more crazy news about the Skeleton Crew, the New Beyond, how it all ties into the Mandalorian and the Ahsoka show, and why the Skeleton Crew show is so important. What's up guys, it's Mike, a guy who loves Star Wars here. Today we're talking about the Skeleton Crew and its importance to the Star Wars franchise moving forward. Now a lot of people heard the announcement for the Skeleton Crew show and didn't think much about it. Many people are way more excited for the Ahsoka show and the Mandalorian Season 3, and I get that, but people are just overlooking the real importance of the Skeleton Crew show. First of all, Jon Watts is going to be directing the show. He is the guy who directed all 3 of the Tom Holland Spider-Man trilogy. But Lucasfilm didn't go out and get Jon Watts. Jon Watts came to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni with the idea for the Skeleton Crew, and they thought it was so important that they had to streamline the show and make it immediately. So the same way that Jon Favreau came to Dave Filoni with the idea for The Mandalorian and they created The Mandalorian, Jon Watts came to Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni with the idea for the Skeleton Crew, and they thought it was such a good idea that they had to make it immediately. Now on the surface, the Skeleton Crew show is about a group of kids and them going on an adventure or a field trip and getting lost in the New Beyond. And it seems as though these kids are going to come across Jude Law's character. Yes, Jude Law himself is in Star Wars now. So although this huge actor in Jude Law is in the show, he is not going to be the main character of the show. It's going to be a kid-centered show. And although it is a kid-centered show, it is not a kids show. It is going to be more along the lines of Stranger Things meets Star Wars. And yes, Stranger Things is Netflix's biggest show ever, and it is centered around kids. So bringing that into Star Wars is a great idea. But a lot of people have been asking, when does the Skeleton Crew take place? Now this is just a rumor, but it is rumored to take place before or during the events of The Mandalorian Season 1 and Season 2. So many people just believe, since it's coming out after Mando Season 3 and the Ahsoka show, that it's just going to take place at that time. No, it's going to be an introduction or a prelude to the New Beyond. We are most likely going to get introduced to the New Beyond in the Ahsoka show when we find out that Thrawn and Ezra have been there for the last decade. Now, what is the New Beyond, you might be asking? The New Beyond is a brand new space in Star Wars. It's not the Outer Rim, it's not the Unknown Regions, it's a brand new location in the Star Wars galaxy. And it's been described to be the home of Force users that we've never seen before, people who manipulate the Force in different ways than the characters we've seen in the Star Wars galaxy. Many people now are concluding that some characters that we've seen in the Star Wars canon, like the Night Sisters, may have originated out of the New Beyond. People who use the Force differently, like Mother Talza in the Night Sisters, with more of a magical feel. So although the Force is used by many different people and in many different ways throughout the Star Wars Skywalker saga, this is a brand new place in the galaxy where people use the Force differently. And the Skeleton Crew show is going to take us there and explore the New Beyond. Now, I think the New Beyond is going to be a lot bigger than people anticipate, because even if you think about the sequel trilogy, which had all these main characters like Luke Skywalker, Leia, Han, you didn't see characters like Din Djarin, like Ahsoka Tano, like Grogu, who now is a very important piece to the Star Wars franchise. But what if the reasoning for not seeing those characters in the sequel trilogy was because they were off on their own adventure in this New Beyond, a new space in Star Wars? The New Beyond could also tie into the sequels because in Rise of Skywalker we find out that Palpatine has returned, and these Sith cultists on Exegol have kept him alive. Now these Sith cultists are said to originate from the Beyond. Now it doesn't say the New Beyond, but that's because the New Beyond hasn't existed in Star Wars yet. But if John and Dave bring it into Star Wars canon, then they can explain that's where the Sith cultists on Exegol actually originated from. Because those Sith cultists, like the Night Sisters, use the Force in very different ways. And of course, the Skeleton Crew show could have an appearance from Ahsoka Tano because we know she's trying to get to the New Beyond, and maybe she asks these children and Jude Law how they got there and how they got back. So maybe you're actually introduced to the Skeleton Crew themselves, the kids and Jude Law, in the Ahsoka show, and then there's a kind of origin story for the Skeleton Crew. So a show that takes place in a new spot in the Star Wars galaxy called The New Beyond, with a possible cameo from almost everybody's favorite character, Ahsoka Tano, having an amazing actor in Jude Law being one of the leads, with a bunch of children, like a Stranger Things type show. being directed by the same guy who directed Spider-Man No Way Home in John Watts. It's expanding the universe, it's bringing in new characters, it's explaining where Thrawn and Ezra have been this entire time, it's bringing in new Force users, and it's bringing in John Watts as a director. So were you excited for the Skeleton Crew show before this video, and are you excited for the Skeleton Crew now? Tell me in the comments below. Smash like if you like this video, hit subscribe, and hit that bell so you get notified every time I post a video, and my pretty face will show up in the recommended feed of yours. If I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. 2023 will be the best year for Star Wars content, especially if we get the Skeleton Crew by the end of the year. With the Bad Batch Season 2, The Mandalorian, The Ahsoka Show, Star Wars Visions, Jedi Survivor, and the Skeleton Crew, it would just be the most insane year for Star Wars content, and I'm going to be covering all of it. So stick around, hit that subscribe, and may the Force be with you always.